All right, hey, we are here with FloRugby with Deionte McMurray, aka Noodles, and
Yes, sir.
I can only assume you got that nickname because you turned defenders' ankles into noodles with that step, but I could be wrong.
Nope, not at all. Actually, I wish that'd be a much cooler story. To be honest, it's not.
I mean, it's not off though, because I mean, I think anybody in Texas and pretty much the follow sevens knows that you might have the nastiest step at least in Texas. But
Alex Reese, are you buttering me up, sir?
maybe. No, I mean I could ask Corey Jones about it.
That is very true. Corey's my guy, though. I feel
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
feel that.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now, and I think it's good that especially regarding race and relations in the United States and across all sports. I think it's good that we're beginning to talk about it more, and I think that it's only good to keep bringing it up and having these open discussions. And so, I'm really pleased to be able to give you the opportunity to kind of chat about your experiences as an African American man in the United States, as well as the rugby community. So I just want to give you the floor and kind of let us hear kind of your experiences growing up and kind of any sort of messages you have.
All right. So for me, I grew up a little different compared to a lot of other people. Um, I was what was referred to as like a statistic a lot of times because of my family's income and then like my race and where I live specifically, like all those things. And I was like, had to like, I remember one time I was in class or something. It was like males that are this race that are in this poverty line have like this more percentage to die by the age of like 21 or something. And like, it was really interesting because me, I was just a kid. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
was normal. I just knew that we had to move around a lot. And if we moved, I usually had to fight on the first day of school to show people I
Yeah,
wasn't no punk. And
yeah,
like, it was really, really normal to me. So we moved around a lot growing up. And I don't think it was up until high school when I started to realize that like how I grew up wasn't the norm. And it was in like subtle ways, like with my siblings, for example. A lot of people don't know I have five siblings. And I'm really like I'm best friends with all five of my
that's
siblings.
awesome.
But all of my siblings are half siblings. And I didn't know that that was a thing up until I was like maybe 14, 15.
Yeah,
And somebody was like, well, how many siblings do you have? And I was like, I told them. And they found out about my brother Keandre. My brother Keandre is 3 months older than me, but we're the
huh?
same age. So
Yeah,
people are always just like, are y'all twins? And I'm like, no, he's older. And they kind of look at me confused as hell.
yeah,
And then they find out and they're like, oh, so those are your half siblings. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they
right.
were like, well, y'all don't have the same parents. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I got three brothers and I got two sisters. And like,
Yeah,
that's all I've ever known. And in other ways, it showed itself like how I would view being at school. I didn't care about school. School wasn't a thing I ever had to like. We went to school because we had to for attendance. Because if you
right.
didn't show up, then your mom was getting like you were getting a ticket and you got like summoned to court. That
Yeah,
was the only reason we went to school. We didn't go to school to learn. We didn't go to school to like try to like dude, when I got here and like people were studying algebra in like middle school, I thought that was like I was like, huh? Like, and so I got to high school and they were like, no, you have to like do your homework and like turn your work in. That way
yeah,
you get your grade. And I was like, man, all right, whatever, y'all are just joking. So it was really, really different. College was a big culture shock for me because in high school I was starting to come to grips with the fact that okay, a lot of people don't grow up in the neighborhoods I grew up in. So I got to start kind of like figuring out what's norm, what's society. I had to deal with my anger a lot. I had to deal with my temper a lot. Me understanding other people and not saying that you're wrong or stupid, but you're just different. Like I
right.
had to, and otherwise, the way I grew up, if we didn't get along, we was gonna fight, or I was not gonna talk to you ever. Like those are the only options. There was no, we may disagree on some things, but we can still be normal people. So when I got to college, that was even more of a culture shock because then I get a lot of different people from a lot of different places
Right.
in a very, very small little bubble. And man, I had to learn a lot of things like by being quiet. Like I didn't talk a lot my first like 2 years
Yeah.
in school just because I was just like, man, what the hell is going on? Like everybody's so different. Everybody got different backgrounds. They're from what country? What are you talking about, dude? Like, so I don't know.
So you obviously you went to Sam Houston State, and I'm not. I guess I haven't been familiar with Sam Houston State rugby in the past, but in the past, like since you've been there the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, you guys have really developed into, I would say, one of the very top Division I AA schools in the nation, and one of the best teams in Texas for sure. And all I know is they've got a real good program that's grown a lot. And in your experience with rugby there, did you find that, I don't know, that there were people from different backgrounds, and was it accepting or was it more open to different types of people?
So for me, like I grew up really, really rough. And for me, probably the best thing I got from growing up that way was tough skin. Like my mom, like no cap, my mom did not hug me as a kid. Like to this day, I still have to be like, Mama, can I have a hug? And there's a 50% chance she's gonna be like, nah. So like I grew up like with nothing but tough love. Like you gotta grow up fast. You can't be in your feelings. Like you gotta get over it, grow up. So that helped me a lot whenever I got to Sam, because I started to realize that people who I thought would come across, just mind you, Sam was a very, very diverse team, to answer that question. Like we had people from like small little towns like Palacios, Texas and Alice, Texas. So you got like the country, like redneck vibes from those. We had like liberals from both types of races. We had Hispanics and blacks and whites. Like we had a very, very diverse team, completely different like backgrounds and wealth. Like it really was dope. So I started to realize that a lot of times the people who were a little bit more conservative or a little less like smiley and bubbly were just sarcastic, but they were still just as funny. Like if you listen to what they said,
that's interesting.
They usually, like if you just wasn't being sensitive at the moment, you would pay attention, and be like, oh wait, all right, that's kind of funny, dude. Like that was pretty good. So me having tough skin, I think helped a lot, because a lot of my teammates were hard asses like that. They were kind of like, they had to get to a point where they didn't care about how people viewed them. So once they said something, they was just kind of like, if you don't like me, you don't like me. And most of the time, they assume people didn't like them. They meet me, and I'm like, nah, dude, that was like, hell yeah, that was funny as hell. like you're my friend now. Thank you.
I mean, shit, everyone I know likes you, so I feel like that's just kind of people are gonna naturally like to have you as their leader, because you were the captain the last couple years, right? Yeah,
bro. I was captain and vice captain, and those were some like, for me personally, those are big deals. Like,
totally.
Those are really, really big deals. Especially when a group of guys looks at you and goes, "We want you to lead us in whatever." Like, it was a big deal for me. So I listened to my teammates a lot. I got to know them a lot, and I think that's what helped me a lot with being able to not have to deal with as much obstacles, I guess, especially being at Sam, was the fact that I knew all of them really well. Like we got the time to listen and talk to each other and have conversations. And like, if I didn't understand why they said something or like irritated me or pissed me off, I would like calm down and then be like, yo, what was this about? And a lot of times we talk about it. I'm like, oh, well, if I grew up like that and those are my life experiences, I understand how you get to this conclusion.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
That is one of the, key aspects of being a captain, is like you have to basically, understand all of your teammates, because you're kind of that liaison too between teammates and coaches, and just understanding where everyone comes from. And I think that's interesting that it kind of speaks to your point about, coming to Sam Houston and having to learn all these different people with different experiences and backgrounds, and parlaying that ability into being a team leader and team captain, which is really cool. And I imagine you'll probably continue being a leader moving forward, with that type of experience. But I guess just rugby-wise moving forward, you've just graduated, or you're about to graduate?
I'm supposed to graduate. We're gonna see. But I did leave Sam. I only have like 12 hours left.
Okay.
So
Are
I'm gonna finish
you
my degree.
looking at possibly doing MLR?
Yeah, I already entered the draft.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I figured. So it's tomorrow.
Yeah, bro. Draft day is tomorrow. I said that this morning. I was like, damn, draft day is tomorrow.
Hey, your hometown got a team now.
Yeah, they do.
The
Wait,
Jack.
what hometown?
I thought you were from Dow. I thought you lived in D-Town.
Yeah, I do. I just moved here just because I wanted to play like really
Oh.
good rugby. Yeah, so the draft for me was like an unseen bonus. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, yeah, I'm just moving because like I'm from Houston, so I was in Houston for this past
Okay.
semester. I was just working and saving money because I was like, all right, like I've played with a few clubs and I want to go back to the Reds. I was like, screw it, I'm gonna move up to Dallas, work on getting my teacher certificate so I can start like traveling and getting a visa because that's how I was gonna get like my overseas experience, which is
Yeah.
being a teacher in other rugby countries. And then they were like, yo, the MLR draft's happening and there's probably gonna be a team in Dallas. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right.
That's pretty good convenient timing. Yeah, I thought you had gone back to Dallas to play last summer because you lived there, but I guess
No.
no. So I guess now more serious talk. Growing up, did you feel like you experienced prejudice or any sort of racism growing up? And I think as a white person, I think I speak for a lot of people that just we simply don't really understand. And I would like to hear maybe some of your experiences, just kind of hearing it from your perspective, what that was like growing up.
See, for me, I was always so for like I can give people a lot about on the inside of what it was like as a person emotionally, because growing up, I was taught about the way I was gonna experience racism like in my face all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
and those were daily conversations, daily jokes with our comedians. What my mother taught me, so my grandmother taught me. Like so, every time I experienced racism, like over like to my face, I knew what it was. So I was really able to react how I wanted to, and not how they wanted to. Like they were already told me what I was going to be called, how like the looks I was going to get. So I was like, cool. The stuff they didn't explain to me was the emotions that come with what it's like when it's just like an understated thing. And those
Mm-hmm.
were things that really shook me as a person because whenever I was a young kid, I'm a happy person, man. Like I love everybody. It don't matter to me. So a lot of times when they would be like F you N-word and like I'd be at school, I'd be like, man, whatever. Like to me, I can make an excuse for that because like that's emotion, that's ignorance. Like you don't know. That's just a lot of times that's just how you're raised, whatever. Like it's whatever. I can brush that off and keep it pushing. But whenever I learned, like, when somebody tells me, yo, look at your environment, pay attention to the settings that you're in. And I'm looking around and I see a lot of people like me. Is that an airplane? All right, bet. So when I'm looking around where I grow up and the people that I love and talk to every day, and they all look like me, and then our neighborhood is like super rundown, super littered, like nothing but dead ass liquor stores, corner stores, and like fast food places on every single corner, bro. Like there are stores I learned about whenever I got to high school that I never knew was a thing because I've never seen it like that. I'm just like, yo, this is a really Gucci has their own stores. I thought you could only get that online or something. Like how I grew up was so used to just everything being what people call sketchy, for example. Like
Sure.
my whole neighborhood is sketchy. Like that's what I'm used to. And then like look at the signs and what's in your neighborhood. In very, very prospering neighborhoods, you have things that lean towards health and wealth. Like you have your banks and your Whole Foods and like good places to get food and things of that nature. You have farmers markets not too far. And then you look at our neighborhoods and it's just like, yo, chemicals, processed this, alcohol, that, like really easy to get drugs. Like it's not hard at all. Like those are just bad signs for me as a kid because I'm like, yo, okay, what does this mean? Like, why is that this way? And then I'm dealing with whenever I go other places, that was the other half. Whenever I got to high school, it started to hit me a whole lot more because now I'm not with a bunch of people who look like me. I'm with a bunch of people who look like you. That's when I
Yeah.
started to be with a lot of white people and Hispanics all the time. And a lot of times I was like one of maybe 4 black people in the room. So we were still
Yeah.
there, but like it wasn't a lot of us. And
Yeah.
I just started to be like, all right, bet. So I would go talk to them and I would talk to every black person I could find. And I very, very rarely did they have the same experiences that I did. Like they kind of got it because we were both black, but even then
Yeah.
there were still some things that they didn't understand. So I was still alone as hell. Like I
Yeah.
had to bite my tongue a lot. I had to change the way I dressed. I had to make sure I talked a certain way. And not because, well, not only because I felt uncomfortable, but it was also to make everybody else around me comfortable.
Right.
Because if I talk and act like I do around my family or like the people I grew up with, a lot of people are going to be off put by it. They're going to be like, why is he acting this way? A lot of people think those types of speeches aren't intelligent sometimes, they're just different, so it's off putting or whatever the case is. Those are the moments where I was just like, damn, like, I really am treated differently because of these things. Like, and I couldn't help it. It's not something I chose. And for me, my heart went out to a lot of the guys who I grew up with that were intelligent as hell, but based purely on the fact that they would not adapt and be looked at as comfortable or accepted in those types of environments, they're almost destined to only be there. Like it was really, really weird because and a lot of them were just in and out of jail for a long time. Like just based on things that happened, they just happened to go in and out of jail. So at a certain point, that's all you know. But these are some of the most intelligent people these are the people who gave me the life advice to be able to be the person, to be able to change and be Noodles today. Like these same people, these same like criminals and thugs and like
Yeah.
all the niggas on TV. I'm like, yo, like there's like 8 of them that taught me the lessons I needed. They got me through, bro. Like what? So what am I like? How am I supposed to feel? How do
Right.
I then process how other people view me or what they think about me? Like it's things I like in my head. I'm like, I'm always aware of. It's always in my brain. I don't
It,
know.
it's interesting that you bring that up about, like some of the best life advice that you've gotten has come from people that happen to, spend time in prison or jail or whatnot. Because I worked one summer as like a part-time job. I was playing with the Huns. I worked delivering beer, and it's
Okay.
a job that you can work for like 12 hours a day, and you can make a decent amount of money. And they'll pretty much hire anyone if you can pass a drug test. So they're not like they don't really discriminate on background checks and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was interesting how many guys that I would spend a whole day working with on the trucks that had been in prison, that like they had gotten out of prison, a year ago, that were like just as intellectual to talk to, just as interesting. Like when you're talking for like 10 hours a day, so like you get to know these guys really well. And that kind of had changed my perception a little bit on like, just because somebody has been in jail or has gotten in trouble, that's a result of like certain situations or certain circumstances, and it's not a reflection on that person at all. Because
It's not, bro.
I seriously did like have chats with guys that like brought some things to my attention that I would like. I was 20 years old. I was like, damn, like I've never thought about that. That's freaking wise.
So so worried, bro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oops. But yeah, no, like that's wise, and yeah, that's a good point, and it makes me ask you, like, when you went to these other schools where you're one of 3 or 4 black kids in the room, did you ever feel maybe like hesitant to speak up, or maybe like you felt like you needed to be quiet or something? Just growing up for, I don't know, fear of maybe judgment or whatever.
So for me, my dad's gonna be so happy. I'm gonna talk about this because he tells you this all the time. For me, I wasn't. I was never afraid of speaking my mind. I've never been afraid to speak in my mind. I've always been an outspoken person. Like ever since I was a little kid, I've been that way. So for me, what I had to be quiet and take a little bit of time and figure out and learn how to do was number one, pick my timing, and then number two, say it the most effective way.
Mm-hmm.
And like those are things I was terrible at as a kid. Like growing up, that like I was all impulse and instinct. Deionte was saying something again. Deionte, be quiet. But that don't make no damn sense. Why is it over there? Can you raise your hand and ask the question? We're talking now. I don't understand what it is. Like that's how I was as a kid. So it took such a long time. But like I started to do it. I started to be quiet, and that made me listen, and that made me pick the timing even best, because a lot of times I'd want to say something or call something out, and somebody else kind of already did it, or somebody else already sees it, or just wait, just let it play out, and you don't have to always say stuff. So for me, being outspoken, I've always known to do. A lot of times I just pick and choose moments when to say the right things, because especially like when dealing with people who aren't like you don't want to just say something as soon as you feel it. Like that'd be terrible. Like I would not understand half my teammates at all. And even then, some of them still like make some jokes that and they're borderline. I'm not gonna lie. Like if we weren't friends and any other body saw these jokes in our group chats, they'd be like, "Yo, that's not okay." And even then, when I am 100% okay with it, because I know their heart, they know my heart, they still text me. And they're like, "Hey, yo, like, are you good? Like, is this okay?" And I'm like, "Nah, bro, you're good. It was hilarious. Like, you got no issues." So that's how I handled that, and it worked out pretty well.
I was, and it's good, you know, when it's your buddies, like you can kind of, it's less maybe uncomfortable for people to like check with you, you know, hey, like, are you cool with that? Because, you know, your mates and stuff, but that's not always the case. And obviously in America, I think we've got a very serious problem with that, like impulse, just saying stuff. And like, sometimes it's just flat out, you know, intentionally like offensive, but like sometimes I think we'll just say things you know, on a whim and not realize that like, yeah, that's hurtful, or like that's, you know, degrading to people. And, you know, that's a good point about, you know, picking your timing and then deliberating, you know, with appropriately and saying the right thing. And so yeah, I like where you're coming from with that. And so now I want to ask, going through rugby, do you feel like there's a difference in the rugby community with, I guess, regards to, you know, race and stuff? Because in most cases, I would say that rugby is a most predominantly white sport, although I think it's changing now, which I think is good. And just look at our national teams, and is, you know, very mixed race, at least with like sevens particularly, and, you know, also now that we're more diverse, we've also gotten a lot better, I think, because it just brings different perspectives to the sport and stuff. But have you recognized any kind of prejudice or racism that, you know, rugby community people might not be aware of?
Be aware of? No, I don't think so, because that's why rugby is the thing we love the most, because it's probably one of the most inclusive things any one of us has ever been a part of. Like, so for example, like my biggest issue with being a citizen in America against me has been that I'm black. My biggest issue as a rugby player has been that I'm short. So it's in a little bit better perspective. Now, have I experienced some things in the sport that have also been because I'm black every now and then? Yeah. Like limitations at certain positions, how people view you and what they think you're capable of developing into have also been an issue. But those are all things that usually deal with the sport. Every now and then you get like just some people who complete opposite spectrum from you, and they just don't understand you as a person. But you never characterize that with the sport. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a fundamental problem in rugby, and I think that's why we do love these sports so much. But if the conversations do have to happen, I think it'll be more with how like certain teammates interact with each other, or how certain predominantly one race teams. I didn't know that most rugby teams are not as diverse as the one I went to. I also learned that.
Right.
I was like, oh, we really got a diverse team. I was like, I get it now. I get it. I was like, this makes sense. So I seen some teams and I was like, damn, y'all got one black person on the team. Like, that's nuts to me. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I learned that the hard way too. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I gotta ask, how did you pick up rugby? Like, what was your introduction to the sport?
Bro, all right. I'm gonna give a shout out to my best friend Caleb Ray. I love Caleb Ray. He's a very weird, obsessive person. He gets like a new hobby every like month or two, and whatever that is, that's what he's invested in. Like, he taught himself how to sew. Like he can make dresses. He can make bow ties.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
I think we all know those people that are like get one track mind on something.
Man, and I'm like, yo, one's for some other reason he found rugby. I think he found league first, and he thought league was a little too violent, and he found union, and he like dove head into it. He was like, yo, rugby's the best thing ever. And I was like, Caleb, what are you talking about? What is rugby? Like, what? I remember we had an argument one day, and I was like, bro, rugby players are not as fast as ball players. Like, you're stupid if you're gonna argue this. And we argued about that. No, we argued about that for months, man. So fast forward, I get to college, and I was going to play football. One of my other good friends named Carlos Vega, we played high school football together. He was a redshirt here at Sam, and I was like, bet, I'm going to try out.
Sam's January. Good, and y'all are good at football.
Yeah.
Really good.
I was like, man, this is going to be great. I get to try out. I'm going to make it redshirt, be a Carlos something. Football wasn't until January. So I had from August to January to work out or figure out how to get better at football. So I was like, bet, I'm a corner. And I'm really quick, and I can cover anybody, but I can't tackle for crap because I'm like 128 pounds, and I suck at jumping because I'm 5'5". Like, so I was like, bet, I'm gonna play rugby because I know rugby involves tackling, and I'll have to get tough. Those are my only two reasons playing rugby: is get better at tackling and to get tough. Yeah. So I like researched when Sam's tryouts was, whatever, and there was no tryouts. It was just like the first practice. So I was like, bet. Started going to practice, got out there. Saw how much they sucked, and it was like, yo, y'all are I was like, yo, they were doing lineouts. It must have been like a bad day for lineouts because they missed like probably like 18 out of 25 lineouts. So I was just sitting on the bench like, man, y'all suck. Like, and it wasn't like I didn't know what it was, man. It wasn't me being disrespectful. I wasn't trying to be an asshole. I was just saying they got picked up and he can't catch. That's all I kept saying. Yeah. So I was like, man, they're horrible. They didn't like me. I didn't like them. And I played from August to like November. I think I played my first scrimmage game, had 2 runs, and then got smacked. Like, it was an open field. I was just running. I looked left and got hit this way. The ball went that way. They caught it, scored another try. I was like, yo. Honestly, rugby's not as easy as I thought it was. I need to practice. I was like, this is not cool. I need to learn. I got real obsessive about it, dove head in, tried out for the all-conference team that November, and it was like a 3 tryout process. It was like really cutthroat. There was like 70 people they had to cut through to get to like 32 or something, and they were going on tour to Canada that summer to play the Edmonton Gold and the Calgary Wolfpack. And I was like, I don't know what none of that means, but I'm gonna try out because I got nothing else to do. And I like tryouts. So I went, tried out. I was the very last person to make the cut. Nice. So at that time, I was like, nah, I got a choice. I could go to Canada for rugby, or I could make myself play football, knowing I'm gonna hate it for about 3.5 years, but maybe hopefully get a scholarship in my last semester, play like a game. I'm not gonna get drafted. I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna go play like Canada sounds fun. I'm from the hood. I ain't never been out the country. Like I got teammates from different places already. I was like, bet. I went to Canada and I was like, this is the best decision I've ever made. After that, I was like, is that the moment you got hooked? Yeah. Like for me, it was the tryout. Like being told that I was selected to go out of the country, I was like, bet. That's for me, that was it. Like, and that was a big shout out to Shane Robinson who runs our conference and the Little Town Rattlesnakes because that I was like, bet. Like I get to do something I thought that I would have to have a lot of money to do. That was my thinking. Like when you're from the hood, if you come back and you done been out the country, like my aunt went to France, I think, in Germany, and my godmother was a military officer for a long time. But she's been in a lot of different countries. when she be telling us she be going out the country, like me and the hood person in me, I'd be like, yo, you've been out the country, you've
Yeah.
been across water, like that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't been on an airplane until Canada. Like I was like, you got to be rich to do that. So the fact
Right.
that I was able to do that because I was promising at a sport,
Yeah.
I was like, that's all I need. Like, say less. And then when I find out that not only when you're there, you're not a tourist, you're a rugby player. So you're learning the ins and outs of wherever you are. Like you're getting the authentic experience from people who are just like you, who grew up like you. They can show you why that country or that city is great because they are there every day. You're not on a resort isolated from the entire country. Like, nah, you're a rugby player. You get to experience that country and its sports, and I love that. Like, that's the best thing ever.
That's awesome. Was this Lone Star Conference?
Mm-hmm.
I think. Did you ever play with Van Diver?
Hell yeah, I love Van Diver.
Yeah,
Van Diver kicked my ass my first 2 years in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the ASU were some problems, man.
I remember Van Diver said they got to. I think that one year they did New Zealand.
Dude, New Zealand was so much fun.
Okay, so you were on that tour?
Yeah, dude.
Oh,
yeah. What was I? I was vice captain for that tour, actually.
That's dope.
That was a fun. We lost every game, but that was an amazing tour. Like, hell yeah, yeah, for sure. That tour is like tours like that is why I love Van Diver so much. Like, we went to Canada, Bahamas, New Zealand. We didn't go to Cayman Islands together. The Cayman Islands is the only place we didn't go together. Me and Van Diver have been to 3 countries together. I don't care what team he's playing for. I don't care where he's at. That is my guy. Like,
that's my guy.
For sure. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and that's awesome. So you've been all over the place now.
Yeah, dude. I wasn't even good half the time. Like, that was the crazy part. No, for real. Like, Alex, I don't know how other people, like, because a lot of people come from other sports. Like CJ, for example, amazing athlete. Like, CJ is an amazing athlete.
Yeah.
So he was good at every sport. Bro, I sucked at I was okay at track. That was my claim to fame. And I got a lot of third place medals from track, bro. But like, I was not good at football. And when I started rugby, bro, it was rough. I was small. I was scared of contact. I didn't really understand the cardio aspect.
Yeah.
Like, it was rough for me. So I had to do a lot of work to get to a point where I was athletic and skillful. I had to get to a point where I was now my body is able to do the things that it wants to do. I had to get strong to be able to deal with the contact. Like, I had to learn how to pass to not get hit 25 times a game. Like,
yeah.
And so it was a process to get to that point. And then, like, you get to a point where you're a prospect, which means you still have a lot to prove, and you can still choose to go overseas. Like, that option is still there for you. You can still keep going. Like, I can still keep going to other places. Like, that is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's cool. I mean, you played with Ryan, my brother, last summer.
I love Reese, dude.
And
I love Reese.
He wants to use rugby to get to see the world, and I guess we were a little bit or a lot more privileged, I guess, than most people to get to travel with our parents quite a bit and visit family overseas. But that's all like specific countries, and with rugby it's like you don't know where you're going to go, and it's just like go take the ride, like buy the ticket, take the ride, and like you can really experience some cool stuff and see some just different cultures. Like, God, I would love to have gone to New Zealand at some point, and I'm sure just like you went to Sam Houston, I would have to assume you probably went to New Zealand and learned a bunch of different perspectives and ways of life than you had in America, which I think is healthy, that we all need.
I think that's why rugby players are such cool people usually too, because like whenever, for example, when you're in a fraternity, a lot of times based on your fraternity, you can kind of assume like the background of the personality or the type of person that your whatever alumni is. A lot of times, like it's usually the same type of individual. Dude, I'm on the Reds right now. I got teammates from France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Like, I got teammates from a lot of different places. Like, if you're always on that type of team environment with people from or in a different place or from a different place, like it makes you a more interesting person because you're used to it. Like you become accustomed to people who are very, very different. Like you develop more as a person from being around people like that, especially when they're your teammates, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, because you got to go through hell with them sometimes.
Yeah.
It seems like rugby's rough, bro.
I got one of my best friends. He always says that, rugby is the only place really where you will have, a doctor, a lawyer, and a plumber, all sharing a beer together. Like,
for sure, dude.
Everyone comes from different, just different backgrounds and walks of life. And I think that's a very unique and cool part about rugby. And personally, I think it's, something that, we can even embrace to a greater extent and just, continue to try to live up to that standard of being open.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the rugby conversation specifically, I think that it should be better to say that we can just keep promoting how diverse and different our sport is as opposed to trying to find and highlight the little times when it's racist. I think doing what we continuously been doing is like the way to go about it. And I think that it's positive for a reason. Rugby's our escape for a reason, and it's different from most things for a reason. The more we increase diversity, the more everything else will just keep taking care of itself. Like, that's just how it works. A lot of people are really off-put by a lot of specific Black athletes who celebrate in rugby a lot of times. But we love Kenyans. Like, people adore Kenyans, and Kenyans dance a lot. I love Kenyans because they dance a lot. Yeah. But if somebody that's from America who's Black does that, it's almost like a cocky football player type of vibe. And it's just maybe it is, but the more crossover athletes you get to it, the more football players that become rugby players who understand the culture, but they still decide this is where I'm comfortable.
Right.
I'm not a rugby player, and this is what I'm comfortable doing in a sport. We get to a point where all right, cool, we have to accept that. That is what we love in our sport. You might not like it, and maybe one thing.
I mean, you've played with Corey Jones or CJ, and I played with him all through college, and now I play with him the Huns. And Corey loves to bring in, with the football background, he loves bringing in dancing and getting hyped after scores, and it makes, from my perspective, it makes it so much more fun to play with when you bring that excitement. This idea, I hate the phrase when you score, act like you've been there before. It's oh
man, who's old and said that? Come here.
Yeah. Bro, it's fun. I don't have good dance moves. So I don't dance when I score because I don't have anything. But I love getting hyped, and it's fun playing with people that celebrate scoring because it's fun. The sport, it's a fun sport. Sports in general are supposed to be fun. And I think you're 100% spot on about when new players join and kind of bring different aspects of other sporting cultures in. It's good to embrace that and not, turn our nose up at it.
So two things instantly popped into my head whenever you started talking about that. The first one was my moment with Corey. And the second one was why playing at Sam was different. So with Corey, I had no idea. I kind of had a vague idea who he was up until last year. Again, with the Lone Star Rattlesnakes, I happened to be in the Cayman Islands out there. And that was around the same time that Nav Sevens was doing a little tour out there. Yeah. So only happened to chance to meet Corey because we happened to be there playing rugby, and we also happened to be staying in the exact same hotel.
Yeah.
So it was we happened to bump against the NAF guys a few times. We did a whole sevens training with them in the middle of our 15s tour, and I kind of really got to know him. Had a party after, towards the end of that week after we know the sevens matches and the 15s matches, and really got to know the guy. So kind of knew who he was as a person. Didn't know how he was as a player though. That was more of a scrimmage type vibe. Played with him at Freetail, and I kind of had an idea of the personality that he was. and he showed up like the day of the tournament, and the vibe had already been kind of set because the bulk of the team was there the day before. We all drove in
Right.
because it wasn't that far for us. So there's like 3 guys missing. Corey showed up the day of the team, and instantly the way his vibe was and my vibe was, and then 1 or 2 other people, like he brought it, the speaker, and we were like, bet.
Yeah.
And it was like we were rocking, we were dancing, like, man, we didn't have to talk about it. Like whenever we came down for game time, we were back like talking to each other in the zone. And when it was trying to turn up, bet it's trying to turn up again. It's game time. Like, and like it was so effortless. Like it made the transition to the field and our chemistry on the field with the entire team that much easier. That's how it was for us at Sam. Like getting to know and be diverse with each other. Like when I got to Sam, for example, I didn't know what country music was. I know I didn't like it. I didn't know what heavy metal music was. I know it was a lot of screaming. I didn't like alternative rock. Like none of those things. One of my favorite bands right now is Breaking Benjamin. I am the biggest Breaking Benjamin fan, bro. And it's because of my teammates. Like being okay with our differences, we were able to be like, all right, bet. Like Noodles has a speaker and I would just play whatever was requested. And eventually we would all have the same vibe and we would all be like, you couldn't match how in sync we were. And for us, the other teams that beat us that like we really like had it out against were ASU and UNT, and the vibes were kind of similar a lot of times. Like when you're all in one unison, y'all all got the same type of like get pumped, like whatever it is for that team, it really worked out for us. Like it really made winning their difference.
That's awesome. I like that. I think that speaks to a good point about, you know, when you're like on a team where like it's just a bunch of the exact same dudes or women, it's like you can be pretty good, but there's like not, it's almost like there's not a what's the word, almost flexibility, or like it's all like a one track kind of a plan A and no plan B or plan C, because it's all the same personalities on the team. Like sometimes it takes those like certain games, like certain people are off and it's like you need the flavor of like this guy or these guys to step up, or like just I don't know, certain games, you know, require different personalities to step up, and that's like you see the best teams. Like I mean, South Africa and New Zealand tend to be like the best, are the best teams in the world, 7s and 15s, like besides Fiji. But like they're very diverse. They've got a bunch of different, you know, personality types and just different types of guys, and they're consistently the best. But I think that, I guess all circling back to the point is like you said, you know, moving forward, rugby community can continue to be open and, you know, embracing just different, you know, different aspects to keep evolving the sport as well.
For sure.
But yeah, man, I'm gonna have to get working on some other stuff today, but I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And before you go, I just want to ask 2 more questions. First one is kind of what sort of advice would you give to young rugby players coming up, and particularly, you know, guys that came from, you know, a background like you where you're moving around a lot and you're in a tougher neighborhood, and kind of what's your advice, because you're now fixing to graduate and looking to pursue a real, you know, career in professional rugby, 7s and 15s.
So for me, I would tell them to, number 1, don't make excuses. Try to think of things that you're going to be proud to say you overcame. And then the other half is be honest with yourself and work on the things to make you a balanced player, not a showy player. Like, don't just do it for the glory. Think about why you want to play the game. Mm-hmm. Be a balanced player. Be somebody who can help your team. Like, being unselfish and naturally doing that, you're always going to be a better rugby player, because you're always going to be working on ways to make yourself better. What you bring to the team differently. doing those two things, as long as you can fight against being discouraged and have hope in yourself, I think that's all. That's all I've used. That's all I've needed.
Right on. That's good. Good advice. And then the last question, something I've enjoyed asking people recently is, in your words, what is rugby?
Bet rugby is hope for sure.
Okay,
Rugby is hope, especially for a kid like me. Rugby is hope.
I like that a lot. That's awesome. Well, Noodles, again, thank you so much for taking the time. And I think it's good to have these open discussions and talk about things that maybe people will try to put in a box and put in a closet and not bring to light. And I really appreciate you stepping up and answering the call on my Facebook status and
Hell yeah, dude.
stepping up. And this has been an awesome chat. I really enjoyed it. I see why you're so popular amongst the Austin Huns and probably every other team. So good luck moving forward. Whatever happens tomorrow, I know you're going to be playing at the highest level no matter what. So just stay with it, and hopefully we get to play some sevens this summer, and I'll see you out on the pitch.
Bro, you'll see me. Don't worry. We'll see each other soon, dude. Hell yeah.
All right. Hey,
All
give
right,
me
bro.
pound it.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, bro.
Thank you, dude. You too, dude.
Peace.
How do I end? Oh, got it.